is the morning, it's almost 1 o'clock in the morning of March 18th, and my name is Bill McCamley. I am a state representative from Las Cruces and Mesilla with your New Mexico update for the day. Did a ton of stuff today. We actually have only, this is almost 11 hours and 9 minutes left to get done whatever we're going to do before the Constitution of New Mexico mandates us that we have to gavel down for this legislative session. So let me try to hit some of the highlights. The biggest thing today was that the House passed and concurred with the Senate on a budget and revenue package that we have sent up to the governor. So the problem that we had coming into this year is that the monies we've got from the tax structures that we have are not bringing in enough to fund the things that we need. So over the past year, we've been cutting, and finding all this money in different accounts. Well, that money's not there anymore. So if we didn't come up with a budget that was responsible, but also a revenue package that would allow us to bring in more money to fund the basic things that we do as a state, we would basically have to start really cutting services to a draconian account. What does that include? Public schools, higher education universities, cops, healthcare programs, all the things that provide, basic level of society that we have here in New Mexico. So what we did was we came up with a budget that basically was $150 million that was short of where we expect to be with our current revenue streams. We actually increased budgets for education a little bit, as well as budgets for economic development and the courts, while doing some small cuts in other places, unfortunately, like universities. But what we also had to pass was a revenue package that did things like close the loophole for internet taxes, raise the gas tax a little bit, raise motor vehicle taxes, which in New Mexico at 3% are way lower, not only than all our other taxes, but all our surrounding states, and a few other things that would allow us to bring in not only $150 million more than we were going to get to pay for that whole, but also increase our reserves. Remember, if the state doesn't have enough money in reserve in our bank accounts, then Moody's, which is the basic credit rating agency for governments, would lower our bond rating, which is like lowering our credit rating, so that it would cost you as the taxpayer more money for however long that stayed. And if you want to fix your credit rating, sometimes that takes a while, for things like roads and water systems and public buildings like libraries and schools. And that's not good either. So we're trying to figure out the best way of balancing all this. And we in the Senate and the House agreed and sent it up to the governor. She has been very against this plan, and she threatened today to actually stop the government. She threatened to shut down the state of New Mexico. So we don't know where that's going to go, but she has 20 days to veto or sign what we have given to her, and we're hoping that something that she's okay with it, but we'll see where it goes from there. What else happened today? We also passed a capital outlay bill. This is money that we give to normally fund physical projects, and we did a little bit of that, $20 million worth of work on senior centers and economic development projects and public safety projects around the state, but also took $46 million and used it to replace money to the schools that we took for this year's budget. So starting in July, we will basically be paying back the schools because we took from their reserves to help pay for our fiscal deficit for this year. That means $46 million for the state as a whole and $3.5 million back into the coffers for the Las Cruces Public Schools. So if the budget passes and the governor signs it with the revenue package, and this goes, that will really help our schools with the funding that they need not to have cuts. We did an ethics commission today. We concurred with the Senate. This is a really big deal. I've been working on this since 2007, and it will allow you as a New Mexico voter to vote on a constitutional amendment, setting up an ethics commission that holds us as public officials accountable. I'm going to vote for it, and I sure as heck hope you do too. It's needed. We actually did, yesterday, I forgot to mention this, another issue I've been very involved with is aid in dying, which stalled in a House committee and made it all the way to the Senate floor. This would allow people who are terminally ill, they have cancer, they have another type of terminal disease, to decide if they're within a certain range of them, a doctor predicts that they will die, to choose how they will die. And they've got this process now in Oregon, Washington, California, Colorado now has it. And it's a very controversial, tough subject. It made it all the way to the Senate floor yesterday and failed only, I believe, by 2 votes. So this is a process that's going to take a few years, but some of us that have been pushing for this are hopeful with the progress that we've made this year. The last thing I want to talk about is that the House did try to concur with a veto override that the Senate did a couple of days ago on an education bill. And this is a bill that passed by wide margins, bipartisan in the House and the Senate. and it would have allowed for teachers, it would not have punished teachers for taking more than 3 days of sick leave during the year. Right now, if you're a teacher and you take more than 3 days, so let's say you get the flu and it's really horrible in October and you take 3 days of sick leave. If you take any more sick time, like let's say you break your foot or whatever in February, if you take more sick time off, it counts against your teacher evaluation. And that has really led to a lot of teachers that come into school and they throw up in buckets and they wear adult diapers if they have diarrhea. I mean, this stuff's really horrible and it's not good for teachers. It's not good for kids. Like I said, it passed by wide margins in the House and the Senate. The governor vetoed it. The Senate overrode it. Almost all of the Democrat and Republicans in the Senate overrode her veto. We tried today in the House, and it failed on a party line vote. Every Democrat voted for it that was there. Every Republican voted against it. And the reason is there's political consequences. The governor has vetoed bills in the past from people that she views as her enemies. And all that sort of stuff. And there's political consequences for me, right? I have a bill that's going to her desk for border expansion hours. I worked my tail off on it, and it's really good for economic development. Could she veto it because of this? Yes, but I'm standing with teachers. When I was in high school in Las Cruces, I had a really hard time my junior and senior year. And one of the reasons that I literally made it out and am here today is because my teachers had my back. They were caring, compassionate, so hardworking. They obviously helped me get to where I am today, and I want to have their back. And so I voted to override that veto, knowing that it probably wouldn't pass, and knowing there might be consequences, but wanting to tell them, we value what you do. Your effort is important to us, and that's why I voted for that. So I'll be back at you tomorrow at the end of the session. I'm sorry this went a little bit longer than normal today, but it's getting fast and furious up here. As always, if you have questions, comments, or concerns, please let me know, and hope everyone's having a great night. See you in 12 hours. Bye.